Hi YouTube. So today I wanted to take a few minutes to sit down and talk to you all about grad school. I know I have mentioned, having or doing this video a few times, and I thought, what better day than today to do it? So, I think first and foremost, not that not that the people watching this video truly care, but I did throw in some like teal, bluey, greeny hair dye into my hair, so if you're seeing that, then your eyes are not deceiving you. It's in my hair. It's almost totally washed out at this point, but it was fun while it lasted. Anyway, so there's that, and then I also just wanted to say thanks so much for those of you who have stuck around and are still watching me and watching my videos when I get the chance to post. I'm hoping that these sort of casual videos just filmed on my iPad, are good enough and are, I don't know, I just feel like they're very true to, I don't know, the roots of YouTube, and it does make me sort of miss old YouTube because there's no editing for this. It's just me literally sitting in my living room and just chatting with you all. So I hope you like this format. I know for me, I still love watching people who just kind of sit and chat like this. So if you're one of the people who also enjoy it, then I'm glad you're here with me. So I am going to break this into two parts because I don't want it to be too terribly long. Also, excuse my nose because I have terrible allergies. Since moving to Chicago, it's like my allergies have just gotten terrible. So I am going to break this into two parts. So this part will be kind of my story about applying to grad school, my experience, and then also the application process, because I feel like that's so important. Obviously, to get into a program, you have to apply, and that process can be really confusing, and honestly, I had a very hard time with it, so I'm hoping I can alleviate some of that stress for some people. And then part two, which I'm hoping maybe I can film next week, will be just sort of like the moving, the transition to grad school, and my first year experience. So, and then if you all have any specific questions about grad school that I don't cover in those kind of two broad categories, or if there's something specific you want me to address in the next video in sort of a Q&A fashion, just leave those questions down below and I'll get to them in that video. So to start, grad school, my story. So right now I'm in a PhD program. I am not gonna say like the specific program just because that sort of narrows down where I'm at and whatnot, and while Chicago is a huge city, it's not that big. So just for my own, I don't know, paranoia, I'm gonna not. But I am in the social sciences. I study sexual assault, domestic violence, any sort of gender-based violence, intimate partner violence. I'm really interested in the sex trade, human trafficking, those sort of things. So just to give you a sense of what I'm doing and what I'm interested in, and the type of program that I applied to. So I will say too, as a big disclaimer, some of the things that I'll talk about in this video will probably apply universally to graduate programs, but a lot of it won't, just because of the area of interest and the programs that I applied to. So please stick around, watch this video if you're in another field, but just know that some of the things I say may not apply. So check with someone else that's more experienced in talking about bio, applications or chemistry applications and things like that. So, my story. I have technically applied to grad school twice, and I have started grad school twice. The first program that I applied to was a counseling psych program, where I was hoping to train to be a marriage and family therapist, and the second program that I applied to was again in a PhD program, or PhD programs in the social sciences. So I'll tell you briefly about my experience in the master's application and program and why I transitioned into a doctoral program instead. So I was hoping to become a counselor. It was when I was working at a nonprofit serving survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, trafficking, and I thought I wanted to do counseling. So I applied to kind of the local program that was in the town that I was in, or the city I was in, and it wasn't really a challenge to get into that program. It's not super competitive. It was a small applicant group, and then a relative to the applicant group, probably a pretty large percentage get in. I don't know what the percentage is, but a decent amount of people get in, so I didn't have any worries about getting in. My grade point average is pretty good, and I just kind of assumed I would get in, which I did. And I'll say too that my experience in this program that I'm going to talk about, in the master's program, please don't take it as me like sort of bragging. It's really more so speaking to the fit of me and this program. So I started the program in fall of 2015, and I was also still working full time, so 40 hours a week working, and then plus a full time master's program. And I didn't find it academically challenging. So for example, like, any of the exams I took, I didn't have to study. I never read, which is a red flag for sure, at least for me. The papers I wrote, I literally wrote the night before. I was not challenged in the program at all. So without trying, I 4.0 in the first quarter of the program, great. I did really well, but I wasn't satisfied, and I wasn't happy with the way I was feeling in the program. I didn't feel like I was getting the real grad school experience because, I just wasn't challenged. And for me, being academically challenged academically is really, really important to me. So I think for me, because that's important to me, I needed to find some sort of program where, I would be challenged in that way. And that was a moment that I kind of realized I can't do this program anymore. It's not a good fit. I rushed into it, and I decided to apply to doctorate programs. And so I immediately then started volunteering. After 1 quarter in a master's program, I left. I was a grad school dropout, but I immediately started volunteering and doing research. I immediately started prepping for the GRE, which, granted, I didn't end up prepping that much for it, but I got Magoosh, which I do recommend, # not sponsored, but I did get Magoosh, and that was helpful to prep for the GRE. And yeah, I then started preparing to go and apply to graduate or to PhD programs, which I'll let you all know too as part of my story. I'm a first-generation college student, which means I'm definitely first-generation graduate student. No one in my family, no one in my immediate family or blood family ever went to school or went to college. My family went to trade schools, but they never went to kind of a traditional 4-year college. So I was left to navigate these things pretty much alone. That's why I really want to get to the PhD application process, because I feel like I struggled with it so much, and had I applied now, I would know. I know so many more things now than I did before. So I feel like I need to wipe my camera. That probably didn't do anything, but that's okay. So, yes. I feel like the lighting is just really bright. Maybe it's because... No, I'm not even gonna. It doesn't matter. Do you all care? No, it doesn't matter. So, PhD application. I feel like that... I didn't really go into, the master's application. It was a really simple application. 3 letters of rec, a personal statement, and then I filled out a basic, application name, my prior history of education, and all that stuff. The personal statement was really, actually a personal statement, so I talked mostly about, my personal passions, and this was, again, the counseling program, so I talked most about my interest in counseling. The PhD process is a lot different. So, at least for, again, social sciences, The PhD application, they're really looking for you to talk about your experience in research, any professional experience that you have. Also, there's construction right outside my window, so I'm so sorry if you can hear that. And they want to know how well you fit with a particular professor in terms of research experience or research interests. So when I was applying to programs, I made the mistake of looking at like places I wanted to live first, or schools I'd want to go to, because that's what I knew to do for undergrad. But that's not what you should do for graduate programs. So what I would recommend in order to prepare for your applications is, let's say, I would recommend reading a lot, reading like literature that you're really interested in. So I'm interested in sexual assault, so I would read sexual assault literature. If you're interested in solitary confinement, then maybe you read mostly solitary confinement literature. And what you can do is actually look at who's writing these articles, who's getting published, and see if they are still teaching, where they're at, and apply to work with them. Or you could see maybe their students that they've taught before, see where their students are teaching, and apply to work with them. So, an example I can give, let's say I'm really interested, Mariska Hargitay is my idol, and let's just say that I'm really interested in doing research on the sexual assault kit backlog. So I do some reading of articles, and I read a bunch about the backlog and how bad it is. And I'm like, you know what? I really want to do research on this, and I want to work with whoever's writing about it. Well, Rebecca Campbell is like the main person in the field who's doing this work. So Rebecca Campbell at Michigan State University, you could contact her, see if she's taking students. If she's taking new students, then you could apply to work with her. Now let's just say that she's not taking new students, but you see that she's taught 3 other people who are still in the field and doing that research still. You could apply to work with her students at whatever university they're at. So you could kind of do this, research where you look up the people that are written, who are writing about the topic you're interested in, see where they're teaching, see if they take students, and if not, go to their students or their former students. So I think actually Megan Greason I might be wrong, but I want to say Megan Greason is a student of Rebecca Campbell, but Megan Greason is at DePaul University in Chicago. So you could work with Megan. So you can make those sort of connections and still get the training you're interested in and the expertise you're interested in and the networking that you may want. But you could do it in kind of sly ways if certain people aren't taking students. So that's what I would recommend for finding people and finding programs. I think a good way to think about it is that for PhD programs, you are not applying to the program, you are applying to the person, or applying to the people that are in that department. So you really want to see that you match well with at least 1 or 2 people in the department. I say 2 just in case something happens, because stuff always happens. A professor could decide 3 years into you being there that they want to take a sabbatical. That could be an issue if they aren't really communicative while they're on sabbatical with you, because technically they're still your advisor. So you want to make sure, like, if they take a leave and they're gone for a year, that you have someone else in the department that you can still have like close contact with, just in case. These are all things that are pretty overwhelming to think about, but if you find a department that has the department functions as sort of a cohesive unit where there's multiple people in the department that have similar interests, then I think you're setting yourself up for success, even in kind of bad situations. So that would be how I would recommend to find programs and find people. The next step, if you find somebody, so again, let's go with the same example. Let's say, I decide I want to work with Rebecca Campbell and I want to apply to Michigan State University and I want to apply to that program. So what I would recommend doing, highly, highly recommend, is you email every person that you want to work with at all the different programs. So let's say you decide, okay, I'm applying to 10 programs. and I'm going to email each person that I'm interested in working with at each program. So what I would do, and I did this for most of my programs, is I sent an email where I, greeted the person, hi, Dr. Campbell, my name is Veronica, I'm, currently blah, 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 which at the time I was a prevention education coordinator or supervisor, I don't remember. I let them know what I'm doing currently. I'm really interested in applying to such and such program. The work and I would recommend being very specific in your email. So saying something like, the work that you do with the sexual assault kit backlog is very important to me. Your article, blah, 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 was really enlightening for me and really inspired me to start researching such and such. Sort of stroke their ego a bit, but in a way that's genuine, and let them know that you are invested in the work that they're doing, and then let them know the work that you are interested in and how your work fits with their work. So, if I'm really interested in, a particular population of assault survivors and whether or not they get their kits backlogged, so I don't know. You could be very specific and say, your research interests fit with mine very well in these ways. I'm interested in working with you in the future, and I am applying to this program, but I wanted to know first if you are taking students or not. Finding out if the professor is taking students or if they plan on going on sabbatical the next year is really important, because ultimately you should listen to their answer and do not apply there unless they are taking students. I didn't listen, and I still applied to a program where the person said they were going on sabbatical. That was a waste of an application fee. So what you should do is take their word and take their answer and save yourself the $60, $70, $90 that it would cost to apply if they are not taking students. These emails can be really helpful because they will put your name into the mind of the person you want to work with. So when application season does come around, that person may recognize your name and may pull your application for an interview. I think that's what happened for me at Portland State University, where I had a really great conversation with the person I wanted to work with, and I spoke with him multiple times. I spoke with him on the phone, where I had a nice conversation with him. I had an interview with him. I was number 1 on the wait list. Things worked out the way they were supposed to with that particular application for me, other than me ultimately not getting in, but that's okay. But that was kind of the perfect scenario where you email the person, they call you for an interview because they remember you during your the casual conversation you had before. I should give you kind of a timeline. For me, I started prepping and finding programs and emailing people in early 2016 because applications were due at the end of 2016. So I wanted to have my list of programs and people so I could provide that to my letter of recommendation writers. So once you found your list of people and programs that you want to apply to, I think that the next big step is to find your letter writers. So for me, I was taught by a TA that I had in undergrad. He was really wonderful and a mentor to me, and he's still a friend of mine. He taught me this phrase, and I think that it really stuck with me in finding people who will write letters of recommendation. When you want a letter of recommendation and you would like to ask somebody for that letter of recommendation, the phrase that I've learned to say is, "Are you willing to write me a strong letter of recommendation?" What this does is it weeds out the people who are unwilling to write you a strong letter, because what you're saying, you're telling them, I don't want you to just write a letter that says you know me. I want you to write a letter that speaks to my strengths, speaks to my passions, speaks to the hard work that I'm willing to do, that speaks to my level of interests and all of these things, and my personality. You want somebody who knows you and who is willing to talk you up. Letters of recommendation can get you into programs, especially if they're coming from, highly esteemed or highly regarded people. letters of recommendations can really make or break an application from what I understand. So that phrase, "Are you willing to write me a strong letter of recommendation?" to me, especially if you're asking professors and people who are used to being asked for letters of rec all the time, that phrase lets them know that, like, what your standard is for a letter. And they will, at that point, then, if they are not comfortable writing you a strong letter of recommendation, then they'll bail out at that point. And honestly, you don't want them writing the letters if they're not willing to write you a strong letter. So if you're an undergrad now, you're in a really beautiful position to make those connections. I know it's so scary to go into office hours. I was the person who literally never went to office hours, ever. I thought you had to, like, have all the world's biggest questions ready to, like, discuss if you went to office hours, and that's not the case. You can literally go to office hours and introduce yourself and just say, like, "Hey, I like your class. I think you're a cool person. Like, you know, talk to me about what you do," and they will love it. So visit office hours, make connections with people, build relationships, and, you know, build up a group of people that you will feel comfortable asking the question, "Are you willing to write me a strong letter of recommendation?" And those are the people that you should ask. I'll say the last thing for me in preparing and, like, filling out a PhD application was really this lighting is really bothering me. Is that better? Should I have done that a long time ago? I'm so sorry. The last thing I will say is the GRE. So the GRE is the Graduate Record Examination. Is that what it's called? I don't remember. I did prepare for that a tiny bit, but ultimately based on the program I was applying to, because I was applying to social sciences, I prioritized my research experience and my professional experience over getting good scores on the GRE in math. I knew I was going to be okay in the literature portion, and then the writing portion I knew I was going to be okay. And just for reference, like, looking at the GRE book on, like, the types of essays that they ask or that they want you to write really helped me, because then I'm mentally prepared for, like, writing an argument and writing whatever. So I would recommend doing that and practicing some essays if you are not confident. I got, like, the second highest score on essay, and that's literally the only prep I did. And then I was, like, in the 76th or 78th percentile for the literature portion. But again, those are my strong suits. Whereas math, I totally bombed the math section. Literally 16th or 18th percentile in math. It was so bad. But again, I was going into social sciences, and apparently the program I got into understood that they will teach me statistics and teach me SPSS once I get there, which has worked out fine so far. But the GRE, I would recommend Magoosh. That was the program that I used for at least prepping a little bit on some of the vocabulary, because they throw out really just out there words for the GRE vocab section. So Magoosh for me was a great program. Again, not sponsored, but that was what I used, and it seemed to be worth it for me. So I think that was really the last portion. Yeah, and I think the last thing I'll say is, like, just really applying to PhD programs is like you're going for interviews. And granted, there are interviews included in, the application process if you make it that far in it. But PhD applications are really, like, the whole thing is like an interview where you are selling your best self. You are going in saying, "Look at me, I've done all these things, I can't wait to do this, this, and this at your program. Like, your program's gonna be better because I'm there." And granted, like, you can't make grandiose claims, but you can say, "My passion is what your program needs. I'm there to work hard. I'm there to share with people the research that I care about so much, and you know, I'm there to make a difference, and you should be, you would be honored to have me, you know, and it's a really tough thing, I think, for people to talk about themselves in that way, because a lot of times, you know, we think, oh, that's bragging, or that's, you know, not cool to do. But I think ultimately, if you are in the position of applying to PhD programs, you are a badass, and you need to recognize that. I still have imposter syndrome and phenomena happening to me constantly. I still feel like they're going to take away my acceptance, even though I'm a year in. But, you know, for others who are going into the programs and applying, just know your worth. Know that you deserve to be where you are. You've worked so hard. Give yourself as many legs up as you can, which means talking yourself up in your application and in your emails to people. Like, let those professors know, like, you would be so lucky to work with me. You would be so lucky to have me as a student, because I am the cream of the crop, the best of the best. And ultimately you are. Graduate students are the backbone of universities. They are the people who, you know, do the hard work that honestly a lot of professors don't want to do or don't have the time to do. So if you are applying to grad school, all I can say is good luck. Give yourself as many legs up as you can. Volunteer. If you don't have any research experience but you want to go into a PhD program, literally what I did is I just went to my local university, or just, you know, email people, you know, let them know, like, I'm willing to do anything you need. Do you need me to transcribe interviews? Because I'll do it. Do you need me to code stuff, which takes hours and nobody wants to do it? I'm your gal or girl, or any gender that you are. You are that person who will do the grunt work, because any volunteer experience or any research experience is experience, and you can put that on your CV, and that will help bolster your application. So again, when I applied, I had zero research experience, and I somehow managed to get in. So I mean, I managed to get in by volunteering and, like, doing putting in the hours and doing volunteer research, where I was not getting paid, I was not getting credits for it, but you do what you gotta do to get to your goal. So it's possible. I hope this video was not totally disjointed. I hope the lighting wasn't horrible until I fixed it a little bit ago. The lighting kind of did weird stuff when I was talking. I know I'm really washed out, but hopefully it's just bright and springy and lovely when you're watching this back. But honestly, you all can do it. You are all smart and wonderful and capable individuals. And if you have, again, any specific questions that you want addressed in the next video or want me to answer down below, please leave a comment. I would love to help you out and, you know, offer my insights. Honestly, if I can do it, anyone can do it, because I had no idea what in the hell I was doing, and here we are, you know, basically 2 years later from when I decided to apply, and I'm doing it. So again, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I will be filming the next part of this series, or this 2-part video, where I talk about my move across the country, my transition to grad school, the differences between undergrad and grad school, and my first year, and make kind of an attitude adjustment I had to have. So that will be next video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will talk to you all very soon. Bye. I forget I'm not gonna edit this video, so I did a cute little pose, but I'm not gonna edit this, and the whole thing's gonna be in. So, okay, bye.